it's Greg here with MaritimeGardening.com. I recently had a question from one of my viewers, so I thought I'd wrap a video around answering it because it's not the sort of thing I can just answer with a sentence or two. So the question was, they're planning out, they're expanding their garden, and they wanted some direction on what are the best crops to plant on newly turned sod. That's the question. So on the one hand, this depends on what you mean by newly turned sod, because I've done videos where I've literally taken sod and turned it over and planted peas in the upside down. I've cut the sod out, flipped it over, and plant peas in it. So that's one thing you can do. So if it's newly turned sod, that's one thing. And if you mean that you've taken a rototiller to it and turned it all in, that's another thing. So I'm going to assume what you mean is the latter, that you got a lawn and you took a rototiller to it last fall or recently or whatever, and it's been all turned over and now it's just soil with a bunch of ground up sod mixed in, because that's what most people mean when they say newly turned sod. Okay, so if that's the case, then the question was, what's underneath the sod? Do you have really good soil, or is it crap? Generally speaking, if you've got a really healthy lawn, really green, good lawn, you probably have some reasonably good soil under there, because grasses need really good soil to grow well, right? That's why most of our grains come from grasses, types of grasses. They come from fertile places, right? Areas where the soil is highly fertile for whatever reason. Or those soils need a lot of inputs, various kinds of fertilizers or whatever, to maintain the nutrient levels to grow grasses. So if you've got a really nice green lawn, chances are good that you've got pretty good soil. Now it could be green because you're just throwing all kinds of fertilizer and stuff like that on it. But even then, it probably means you got good soil structure, right? Good soil has, the right combination of sand, silt, and clay, that sort of organic matter, and so on and so forth. So if it didn't have all those qualities, even fertilizing it would be challenging to grow grass on it. Or it could be that you've got a reasonably healthy lawn and you don't just have grass, but you have some combination of things like grass and clover and other stuff. Clover is nitrogen fixing. Suffice it to say, if it was all nice and green, reasonably good lawn, you probably got pretty good soil there. And if it was like all weeds and dandelions and that sort of thing, you still might have good soil, but maybe not, right? Because a lot of weeds will grow anywhere. So then it's not quite sure. So if the question is like, I don't know if the soil is good or not, I don't know what I'm working with, what should I plant because I want to have success. My go-to things for that sort of situation is things like beans and peas. They're nitrogen fixing, especially if they're inoculated. So they're very forgiving of poor soils. So if you're making a new garden and you're not sure what you're working with, plant beans, you'll get beans. If it's really good soil, you'll get all kinds of beans, and the beans will look really healthy. And if it's really crap soil, you'll still get beans, you just won't do as well as normal. So beans and peas are a good bet. If you, like me, and you're impatient, you want to get going, you can plant your peas, depending on where you live. Where I am, you can plant peas right now. It's iffy, they might not germinate because it's still getting quite cold at night. But peas can be planted where you still have frost. Beans, you're gonna have to wait, right? You can't plant beans till all risk of frost is over, which where I live tends to be sometime in June. So another thing I like to plant in a new bed, when I make a new bed, and I mean it's been a few years since I've had to do that here, but I mean for those that have been watching this channel from the beginning, like 2015 sort of thing, you see me break new ground. When I break new ground, I tend to go to either potatoes or peas or beans. And the potatoes are a really good way to gauge what you're dealing with. Because sometimes you break a new ground, you put in a new garden, you plant potatoes, you get really big, beautiful potatoes. And sometimes you get little crappy potatoes, right? So if you get little crappy potatoes, that probably means there's something missing there. Like the soil might be probably not too acidic. The challenge with potatoes is that they don't mind acidic soil. So you could have a soil that potatoes grow really well in, that maybe tomatoes or spinach or something like that don't grow as well in because maybe the acidity level is too high. But you know, for me, if you got really big, if you plant potatoes in a garden and they work really well, you know you've got all the other stuff, right? If you know you get really big potatoes, then you've got healthy soil that may or may not be acidic, right? Just because potatoes grow well doesn't mean the soil is acidic. It means it might be acidic because it doesn't bother them. But you know, if the potatoes grew well, you've probably got everything you need, and it's probably reasonably good soil. So then the next year you plant something else, like a kale or a spinach or whatever, and see how it does. And the great thing about planting something like spinach, which you can sow right around now, right, beginning of April, is the spinach is going to be done by June, maybe end of June. You still got time to plant something else, but you can still plant potatoes. You can follow spinach with things like beans, right, which are a heat-loving crop. So yeah, that would be my go. If you're not sure what you're working with, I would plant potatoes, beans, or peas, things like that. But you know, if you turned over the sod and you had, like, just for whatever reason, you're just reasonably confident you've got some pretty good soil there, or even when you're turning it over, you added some manure or something like that, I'd just go plant anything, right? like it's the only way to know. I mean, you can do a soil test, you can do all that sort of stuff, and that's not a bad idea. I've never done that. So it depends on how much land you're claiming and what scale you're going on. But if you're talking about one bed, you're going to plant one thing, right? Then plant, like if it was in, like, let's say you just turned over a bed, 4x8 bed or 4x10 or 4x12 or whatever. Then I would plant, because it's this time of year, I'd plant peas, because it's the only thing you can grow right now anyway. That's really easy to grow. And then the peas will be done by, I don't know, July, early July. Depending on where you live, you still have time to plant something else in that bed, right? So it's a good way to gauge it. Otherwise, I'd plant, wait until you see yellow dandelions, plant potatoes in that bed, right? If it's just one bed. But if you're making multiple beds, I'd plant peas, plant potatoes, plant beans, right? But plant some other things. Try some spinach, right? Try some kale, try some other things. The most demanding plants, the heavy feeders, things like squash and zucchini, tomato, pepper, all that sort of stuff, you know, that's a little more iffy. But I mean, you've only got one season to play with, and you got to wait for winter to go by. So there's very little cost for trying things. The worst that can happen is it fails, and based on the degree of failure in that bed, you then have a sense of what might be wrong with the soil, right? You can guess, right? Just make notes of everything you're seeing. Plant a number of things, see what worked well, what didn't work well, and that might inform you about what is missing in the soil, what it's deficient in. At that point in time, might be worthwhile to get if things all go wrong, maybe get a soil test, right? But if things all go right, then just keep going for it, right? Every year or every other year, turn in some compost or some manure or something like that, and just keep her going. But yeah, if you're asking for what are the safest things to start with, beans, peas, potatoes, they're my go-to for breaking new ground. They seem to they always grow, and they always give you something, right? If they're highly productive, you know that you've got pretty good soil. If they're giving you very little, then you know there's something going on there. And even then, let's say the results are poor. It might be that your soil is deficient in something, or it's too acidic, or it's too alkaline, or it could be something like that. Or it could be something much more simple, like there isn't enough sun in that spot. Right? It's just not sunny enough for those things to grow well. Or you know, the bed needs to be raised up a little bit because it's just too wet, and the roots are, you know, the roots can't get enough air, right? Because roots need air. So, you know, the only advice I can give you is plant some easy stuff like beans, peas, and potatoes. See what happens. Make notes. Everything works out great, then keep going next year. If things go wrong, then you've learned something. Make some notes. Come up with a plan for next year and try that out, just like I've been doing here all these years. So I hope you found that interesting. If you did, please like, share, subscribe. The viewer that asked that question was Greg Roger, something. So anyway, if that helped you, please let me know. And if there's something else you want to know, please let me know that as well. I know you asked 2 questions. I'm going to ask the other one, and I'm going to answer the other one in another video. Other than that, I hope you found this video interesting. If you did, please like, share, subscribe. Check out my podcast, maritimegardening.com. Check out my weekly article at maritimegardening.substack.com. And check out Vessi Seeds at vessis.com. Use my coupon code GAVS25 to buy whatever you need for your garden. Details are in the description box, and there's a little plug at the end with a little more detail on that. Other than that, until next time, get out there, get at it, have fun in your garden. Thanks for watching.